Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show today. We are going to have a great show. Today is Casual Texan Day. And you know who declared that? I did. You know why I did? Actually, it was a great weekend. I spent some time with our Panamanian brethren. We had a Panamanian scholarship event of which I was the MC. I co-emceed with my cousin who lives in Houston as well. And we had a blast. And one of the students that got a scholarship went to the University of Texas. And I just felt like sporting my Go Longhorns. So that's what we're going to be talking about. That's not what we're talking about today. But anyhow, before we start, all the folks that are just coming in, I want you to do us a big favor. I want you to do society a big favor. Go ahead and share right away. Please go ahead and share this program on your wall all over Facebook right now. If you're on email, share the link. If you're on Twitter, tweet it. It's important that we get these types of messages out because you know what? Chase Escamilla, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. And it's Hookham, Chase. I know you're in Austin. Now, and by the way, but I graduated out of UT probably before you were born. That's how it is. But folks, again, remember this is also a call-in show. The call-in number is, there you go, 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I want to hear from you guys. Don't be shy. Just call on in. And if you have something to talk about, today's kind of a freewheeling show. What I want to talk about is how we talk to people to make a difference. And that is sort of what we're going to talk about today because it is important. Like I tell people all the time, 50 plus 1 is not a governing majority. 50 plus 1 is just I won. And just saying I won isn't all that good. As you can see, we won in 2008 and we won big in 2008. And how did that work out after all again? 2 years later, we didn't have something solid. We didn't have something to build on. And the way we get something solid to build on is to be able to talk to folks and have folks going in the same direction, have folks on the same wavelength. That is what we do. So what I want to read a blog. It wasn't one that I wrote. It was one that I found at the conversation. And when I read the piece, I said, yes. And then I started thinking about Coffee Party USA because that is also a group that we're aligned with. And I said, you know what? This is what we talk about. And I want to kind of have the show discussing some of that somewhat. But anyhow, if you're just coming on to the show, I need you, I urge you, I implore you to share this program right now. Be the first to well, not the first. There's a lot of folks that have shared it so far. But we need you to share this program importantly so that we can start making that change. You know, everybody always talk about we need to make a change. We need to make a change. The change is actually made when you deliberately make it. Let's see. Let me kind of go to read some of it. Looks like folks are saying a few things on the page. Let's see. Melissa says Thursday night. Check out this speaker. Okay, Melissa. When I get a chance to click on that, I'll click on that speaker. But welcome aboard, Melissa Noble. Welcome aboard, Chase again. Teresa. Pelzinski, welcome aboard. And also welcome aboard Michael Rudman. Thank you so kindly for coming. Don't forget, folks, I need you to share right now. And also, before I get into the program, I want to remind all of you that are listening right now that this is a progressive show, and also that there is no gift for progressives anymore. So what we ask progressives to do right now, those who have the wherewithal to do so, those who are able to do so, if you would have bought me a coffee at Starbucks, if you would have bought a friend a coffee at Starbucks to discuss some politics, to discuss anything, please go ahead and consider subscribing to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. Support the progressive movement. We only have you. You're going to see us discuss a few things today where we always talk about the mainstream media not being able to cover, not because they're bad. That's not it at all. It is because they can't. I mean, if you're selling drugs for a drug company and something comes out really bad about that drug, how can you go out there and say, oh, this drug is bad and so forth, and mess with the bottom line that is paying you? Now, when we get subscribers to our show, we are self-sufficient. And in the process of being self-sufficient, as meaning if you take a look at all this equipment that we have here to do Facebook Live and to do YouTube Live and to do Blog Talk Radio, it costs something to do these things. So we ask you to become a Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right. There was a time that we could do this completely off of the advertising from my blog, egbertowillies.com. As you guys have heard, Facebook has changed its algorithm and Google has changed the way searches happen. In that process, what they have done is they've cut our revenues from advertising by 90%. It was 70%, now it's 90%. So you can see now that we're more dependent on a model that says that as folks who want the progressive media out there, who wants to have progressive values going forward, to actually have a stake in here. In other words, this is not something about giving away. This is having a stake, an investment in making sure that guys like Egberto Willies, guys like TYT, guys like Op-Ed News, guys like Daily Coast, what I tell people all of the times before I get too deep into the show, personally, I make sure and invest in my progressive rags. Daily Coast, Op-Ed News, HCDP, the Democratic Underground, and quite a few others. Small contributions to make sure the progressive message can get out there. Without any further ado, though, what I need to do is get started with the program. And the first thing I need you guys to do is go out there and share the program. And let's get started as soon as I can put my password in here. And we can start the program. The program is going to be, the title of the program today is, what is the title of the program? Let's make it less stressful to talk politics because we have to. And, the title was first, let's make it less stressful to talk politics. But then I said, why do we need to make it less stressful to talk politics? We need to make it less stressful to talk about politics because we have to. And the subtitle is Discussing Politics, the Only Way to Make Substantive Change. Folks, today we discuss how to lessen people's fear of having healthy political discussions. It is easier than you think. Here is the reality. There are enough progressives in this country that if activated would win every election. However, winning elections is not enough. Governing requires more than 50+1. Okay? So what I'm saying, if you were to ask people their values, it would be easy for us to get, even for those people who are confused, even considering that those that are confused are not going to vote progressive values, it is easy for us to go ahead and say, to get 50% of the population +1. But in this country, or in any country, 50+1 is not a governing majority, because when you're at the edges, when you're winning marginal elections, and there's a Piketty came out, the French economist, I think is what he is, came out and pointed out that we are in such a system right now that all we're getting is elections that are within 4 or 5 points, and those kind of governing majority cannot really make any substantive change. And as every one of you know, what we need in America right now are substantive changes. Okay, moving on. Interesting, interestingly, the problem isn't just between parties or major ideologies. It can occur intra-party as well. There is a continued feud in the Democratic Party, with cross-demonization of both Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders that is not only healthy, but corrosive. Why did I bring that up at all? I brought that up because I want to tell a little story, and folks, bear with me a second. A friend of mine, somebody I still consider a good friend of mine, wrote a little blog post or a little Facebook post, and he said, Bernie Sanders made a comment about the Democratic Party and, how it is pretty much outdated and how what it has done has not made a whole lot of difference to a whole lot of people. That sort of comment, the type of comment that one would expect from Bernie Sanders. And he made an important statement. And he said that Barack Obama was a charismatic leader who came about into the fold. And what I saw a lot of people do with that, I saw a lot of people started saying, oh, my God, Bernie Sanders is a racist. Bernie Sanders is a racist for referring to Barack Obama as a charismatic leader who came in and in effect, what he was saying is, I saw it clear as day. Okay, the very first time I read it, I saw nothing about racism there. Bernie Sanders is an older white guy who earlier on did some work in the civil rights movement, but he's an economic justice kind of a guy. Everybody have a certain focus, and this guy's focus is economic justice. It was imperative for running for the entire country. A guy like Bernie Sanders had to be moved from just being an economic justice guy to take into account criminal justice, racial justice, and all these other type of justices that affect the entire body politic. So, we were at Netroots Nation. I was a part of it. We were at Netroots Nation. And at Netroots Nation, Black Lives Matter came into the fold. And let me just say, good friend as well, let me know. We're going to have a meeting at 10:30 to discuss some action Black Lives Matter is going to take at Netroots Nation. I begged to hear what it was because I know I couldn't make it to the meeting. And these guys are very disciplined. And they said, no, you won't hear about it. But if you come to the meeting at 10:30, you will know what the action is. Well, I wasn't able to go. I had a plenary to go to. But anyhow, while we were in the meeting hall, my table, by the way, was right in front of the stage where Bernie Sanders and O'Malley and all these guys were. And one of the leaders in Black Lives Matter came up to me and slapped me in the back and said, hey, you better have our back because the action starts now. And immediately after that happened, BLM, Black Lives Matter, started to march in, and they disrupted O'Malley. They disrupted Bernie Sanders. And a good percentage of those people in the room, irrespective of race, supported the action, but the plurality, or I would say the majority of those liberals, mostly white liberals in Netroots Nation, did not support the action of Black Lives Matter. And it created a ruckus out there. And I can tell you, some of the work that I did, other than interviewing some of the folks from BLM and others, was to talk to some of these folks that were expressing some dismay that Black Lives Matter would come into the fold and disrupt these presidential candidates who made no real mention of the necessary criminal justice changes that are needed in this country, and to talk about what kind of racial justice mechanisms they would put in. So by that night, before that, I spent a lot of time interviewing, and not only that, I'm a front page writer at Daily Coast. I'm one of their editors at Daily Coast Sunday front page writers. I wrote a piece talking about my disappointed in these progressive liberals at Daily Coast who had the nerve not to support Black Lives Matter, and some of them even saying they feared them. I'm like, what the hell do you guys think? What happened when we were in the streets with Occupy, and all these other events? Anyhow, by that night, Bernie Sanders' platform changed. Black Lives Matter did the job to change platforms. Now, there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party who just don't like Bernie. He's an independent, claimedly. The man is a Democrat. I mean, everything he does is with the Democrats, all right? But anyhow, there's a whole lot of problems with the guy. The people hate the guy or whatever. I try to tell people this. I was personally a Bernie Sanders delegate supporting Bernie Sanders. I still support Bernie Sanders. But you know what? I'm a Democrat as well. And the thing about it is, unlike folks on either side, I am not the side that the type of person that's going to say, Hillary's bad, Bernie's good, or Bernie's bad, Hillary. That's not where I am at, and that's not where the average Democrat should be. The truth of the matter is, I support the policies, the democratic socialist policies of Bernie Sanders, because that is where any real country who wants to support its people, that is where it has to go. If you doubt it, go to the Scandinavian countries and others, including England and Canada, and that is where we have to go as a country. Otherwise, the mechanisms within capitalism without structure will eat the middle class, which is exactly what is happening in America today. This is not an accident, and these countries have already realized that. And that is the reason they've made the changes that they've had to make. But anyhow, by the end of Arizona, it was all changed. Bernie Sanders' message had changed. Bernie Sanders had incorporated social justice and all these other features in there. Not only that, he kind of got enamored with Big Mike. I'm not, I like Big Mike, but I'm not, I don't know why that is a particular person that was one of the drivers. But he got involved with Big Mike, and he really made some concerted efforts there to come on into the fold. This story started with me saying somebody said the man's statement was racist, as opposed to looking at it from, well, could it be that this is what he meant? And I looked at it as, this is what he meant. What Barack Obama did, in my opinion, to the Democratic Party was to put a thin facade over a dysfunction. In other words, Barack Obama was so good. Barack Obama was so good a politician. Barack Obama was so intelligent a politician that all the problems within the Democratic Party were placed on hold. On every election that he has been in, Barack Obama put the Democratic Party's dysfunction on hold. Why? Because he was that kind of a guy that could sit down and get people within the party talking. He's that kind of a guy that made people feel comfortable. We don't have that kind of a guy around right now, so the true dysfunction within the party is right back. It never left. It was like having a scab, and then now we're peeling the scab again. The party has a lot of problems. The party, the party does not support or rather, the people that most support this party, the Democratic Party that is, are not necessarily the people that get the most support, are not necessarily the people that get the most respect, are not necessarily the people that gets the leadership positions. So we can go through all the dysfunctions within the Democratic Party and say one thing. We can try to make it a Bernie problem, or we can look at it honestly and say the Democratic Party has a problem. Let me give another problem. I live, and this is for those that are listening nationally, you can probably replicate that elsewhere. I live in Kingwood, Texas, northeast Harris County. Harris is a fairly blue county, but not 100%. The suburbs are very red. I live in a very red area, but it also has large pockets of gettable people. It has very large packets of people that are reachable, people that can be brought in, people that have never voted, people that are new voters. Do you think the party would invest in this area in as much as I can tell you, women in spring that have come to me, in fact, I've told them that sometime we were going to have them live on the next time if they simply don't get the support. But we have women in spring. We have women in the woodlands. We have, and notice I'm saying women. This activity, the Democratic Party right now is sustained by women. Okay? All women. but specifically black women. But we have women of all flavors coming and telling me, why are they leaving these parts out? And that is because, again, the dysfunction. They have a way of operating. If you recall when Bernie came in, Bernie brought in a whole lot of folks because what he did is similar to something Barack Obama did. And that is, there are some people that are set in their ways, let's expand the base. And that is what Barack did. He expanded the base of the party. If we are to win lucrative majorities, that is exactly what we have to do. And in the case of the Texas, in the Harris County area, Montrose doesn't need a whole lot of people out there trying to prime those people to come in. A lot of these places that the Democrats are concentrating their firepower in Harris County, they don't need people. You want to revolutionize Harris County, and this applies to counties throughout the country. I know there are a lot of you listening from all over the country. There are a lot of counties like this where the Democrats have their little hold and they stay there instead of expanding the base. We can talk about rural areas. These are ripe. These are people that want our message. These are people that want the progressive message because that's the only way they're going to get out of the poverty that they're in. That's the only way they're going to get the resources that they need. But what don't we do? We stay in the same funk because we have a whole lot of the old leadership and some of the new leaderships that are coming in. They're just following the path that these guys have put out there. You need a Bernie to raise hell in the party. And for those people who are just trying to malign the person as a racist or anything like that, forget that crap. Most people are racist. Okay, I said it. Some know and some don't. Some of my friends are racist. Okay? I know that. They don't. Sometimes I tell them. Sometimes I empathize and express to them how what they're doing is how they're doing and why it is that things need to change in the way that they think. And you know what? That is effective in my humble point of view. And that kind of falls into the discussion that we're having. I got a caller on. So, since I've been doing 20 minutes of talking, before I go into the little news snippet, let me go ahead and get the caller because, again, I'm tired of the monologue all the time. So let's go ahead and bring that caller in. Caller, I think you're calling from 612. Come on in. Come on in, 612.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Hi.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to ask, why do you, for example, let me ask a basic thing, Gary.
Sure.
Do you actually appreciate capitalism, or do you think capitalism is a flawed system to the point where we need to adopt a different economic system?
Let me tell you, I'm an engineer by training, and the only thing I believe in fact-based information as such. If you take a look at capitalism as it has been portrayed, as it's been run in the United States of America, we can't call it a success when when it has generated the income and wealth disparity that it has thus far. It is imperative. You're going to have everybody that tells you, go downtown Houston and see all those big, beautiful skyscrapers. Go onto your freeways and see all these big, huge freeways. Go on to the medical center and see great technology. Go into go over to Silicon Valley and see all these great things that get built. Amen. Great. I said, I was talking about that on a program a few times, and a woman called in and she said, it's funny because sometimes your listeners have the best answers, right? I was trying to tell folks it's not all about all that material stuff that gets created. It's about individuals being able to be better off, etc. And this woman said a simple thing. And she said, of all those great big buildings, of all those great things, the great planes and the great carriers that capitalism has built for you, which one of them do you have full access to? And then I had to sit back and think for a while, and I'm like, oh my God, you're right. We get the opportunity to say how great things are for a very few, with the expectation that it can be great for us as well. And let me just qualify for myself before I bring you back in, my dear friend. I'm I ran a capitalist business I'm a software developer. I owned my own company since 1983, and I went full time with my company since 1989, and I've been very successful. It bought my house, everything. Now I haven't worked in over 7-8 years and depleted everything because I decided to become a political activist and that was a moral decision on my part, because I saw that it wasn't sustainable. And I knew I needed to change when the folks in India were calling me to tell me that they could write the software that I was writing and selling online for $10 an hour. I knew something was wrong. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and I used to have a similar view as far as some of the issues I have with capitalism. But as I studied history and studied human behavior, I noticed there's a couple of other factors at play, and it's not necessarily just because of capitalism.
Sure.
And there was a psychologist who talked about this, and I forgot the term they used to describe it, but it's sort of a cause and effect issue where there seems to be this thing of momentum that happens in either way in a person's life, depending on what's happening. For example, like if you become successful at a business, for example, or have a really good idea, and you start to excel at a certain area, other opportunities seem to pop up around you, and you have this accelerated momentum upwards.
Right.
But there's also a similar effect on people going downward. Like if, let's say, you get involved in crime or you make certain bad decisions that put you in a difficult area, all of a sudden there's that same momentum effect can happen in the in the negative trajectory.
Sure.
And so I feel like that is a principle we see in life that's almost independent of capitalism. But capitalism in and of itself, what it does create, we have to be honest about it, is that it does create a lot of opportunities for people.
Yes.
Like to your point,
yes, it does.
You had a business, you started an idea, you were good at it.
Yes.
People appreciated your services, they wanted to do it, and it grew. And I think we have to also take into consideration that money is not distributed. Like we hear the thing about income not being distributed properly. Well, it isn't distributed in our system. We don't collect the money in one group and then one group values it out and says, I want to give it to you or I'm more than this person. It's based on it's an open pool, and there's a competition. If you have what it takes to get it, or if you have a special talent or skill or ability or idea, you can go out there and you can tap in and you can win.
No,
there's not like some determining.
The good thing about it, sir, is I understand how that works, right? I understand how it works, and you do as well. I think we have a little difference in opinion here, and let me give an example, right? I'm originally from Central America. I had very good parents. I love my parents. I think they did a great job with me, and they instilled a certain value set in me. They made me a tough-headed son of a bitch, to put it bluntly. Okay, and that is the reason that I've excelled in engineering, even though a lot of my bosses were the biggest racists on the planet, and I still excelled. When I got fed up, I went ahead and formed my own company, and you know what? I excelled there as well. But guess what, my friend? You see, I am a bit more empathetic. And I'm not this is not saying that you're not empathetic, but I'm saying my thought process is this. Not every person had the wherewithal or were gifted enough to get the parents that I had, to have the particular struggles that made a positive influence on me. Now, as a society, what we do, a society is sort of a dampening effect on the whole. The idea is to take out the bumps. In other words, in an absolute capitalist society, you have it's a laissez-faire thing where you take as much as you can get and you make as much as you can and you do it. That is a pure capitalist system. Now, in what we have a regulated capitalist system, things you put in moderating factor to realize that capitalism has no heart, soul, morals, or anything else. That's what you do with regulations to kind of mitigate it. You have to determine as a society how deep those regulations go. My determination is those regulations are to go into a social, to ensure that social services are taken care of first. And what I mean by that is we have to remember humanity first. Humanity wasn't designed for business. Business was designed to make humanity better. And right now, if you listen to a politician speak, most of the times they'll say, well, if we create this social good, it'll cost business. If we create that social good, it will cost business. Why don't we say we create the social good and find a way to mitigate business around that social good. And we would have a much better system. And there are much better systems in there. If you take a look at how it works in Sweden or Denmark, you would see that. And, you know, people try to use every excuse. Oh, they're a monolithic community system. They're mostly whites, or it's a homogeneous society, or it's smaller. Everything can scale. I mean, even if it meant us scaling it in several Swedens here in the United States of America, it could. The problem right now, my friend, and what's your name, sir? First name?
My name's David.
David. The problem here is that we, in this society, we've had something known as the Powell Manifesto that was designed to frame people's minds differently into making selfishness vogue, making Ayn Randian policies vogue. And my contention is not to take away free enterprise. My goal is to make America fight for what they deserve and what is theirs. As an example, Senor Bezos, Mr. Jeff Bezos, is the richest man on the planet. Okay? Jeff Bezos is not worth being the richest man on the planet, because capitalism, the design of our economy, is what says he's worth that. But the reality is, absent what you and I did, you pay your taxes, David. You do a lot for society. I don't know what you do, but I know one thing. If you're working and you're calling me and you have a phone and all of that, you have done quite a bit for society, including making Bezos who he is. And what we've learned in society is not to accept our own worth, not to accept what we actually produced. So all those folks that are working for Amazon, some of them that are on welfare because they only make $10 an hour, all those folks that are on Amazon, all their excess labor, their excess value, and the capital gains on that stock that makes him the richest person really belongs to all of those folks who were part of that process. It is our laws that said only a few get the spoils. Anything else you want to add, David?
Right, but I think you'd also have to agree that, I mean, Amazon didn't start that way. Amazon started as a small online
Yes, it did.
that
Yes.
grew, and because they were better at providing goods and services in a more efficient way online versus
Yes.
a lot of people be able to order stuff and have it delivered to their home.
You're right.
They got better at it, and that's why they grew.
You're right.
Right, and to your point, though, when you say about Bezos, depending on all, let's remember, Bezos himself also was a taxpayer.
I
So,
agree.
like all of us, if you're working, right, you'd agree, all of us contribute taxes.
Yes, we do.
Those who are wealthy actually contribute more in taxes.
I agree
than the
with
rest
that
of
as
us.
well.
Like,
I agree with that as well.
Yeah, so the argument that, well, we contributed to the taxes, which provided roads and the infrastructure to allow these businesses to operate, it doesn't really hold water because the
I got to
person
stop you right
who-
there. Let me stop you right there, baby.
Those business owners themselves.
No, let me stop you right
yeah.
there about the whole water. That I don't. I mean, we have to not talk across each other in definitions here, right? My contention is if I steal a whole lot of money, right? If I steal a whole, I'm coming to you next on the 713. I'm coming to you. 713. I'm coming to you next. If I steal $100 million, and somehow the government makes it legal that the kind of stealing that I make was legal, and now I have to pay taxes on that $100 million, I'm going to pay a large percentage of that money on that. So yes, I'm a big taxpayer. And in fact, when the tax cut comes, it should come to me. I look at a lot of what occurs in capitalism as theft. But you see, we were designed, or we were taught through the Powell Manifesto not to look at it that way. We were taught to look at
But you have to be honest, or
Yes.
you have to define your terms. So if someone has a successful business,
Yes.
they're not stealing, because unlike the government,
You
the
are-
money that they're attaining, for example, the government gets the money through forced confiscation under threat of imprisonment. That's
Okay.
what taxation is.
yes,
Most people who engage in business are providing a good and service that people voluntarily purchase because they want it. They want that product or that service,
Mhm.
and because they want it, they are willing to pay for it. And if a lot of people like it, then a lot of people will purchase it. That's what it is.
I don't.
There's
You know,
nothing immoral or illegal.
let me
or
tell.
evil
No.
about that.
Man,
That's the vast majority of business. Now,
let-
if you can identify a specific company,
Mhm.
corporation, or business or industry that you feel like is getting their money through ill-gotten gain, then that's something to talk about.
oil
But to try
companies.
to
Let me
just
tell you.
broad
Let me
scope
give you
and
the.
make it seem like most people involved in capitalism are doing it illegitimately.
No.
That's totally
No.
false.
I'm not
And
saying
let's
that.
be honest, sir. That's just to justify yourself.
No,
to be
David.
able to have the moral right
No,
to
David.
claim a large percentage of somebody
David,
else's money.
you have to let me
That's
speak.
why you're framing it.
No, that's not why I'm framing it that way at all. I'm framing it that way. First of all, I never
why
said.
would you make that idea?
Let me talk. I am not saying it is illegal. I didn't say they did anything illegal. I said that we as a society have made certain things legal. I mean, Bill Gates and all these wealthy folks are rich because of our laws that allow that to occur. We could have written the system differently. In fact, other countries that are just as successful have. Other countries with a higher per capita income have as well. So what I'm saying is I'm not saying what they're doing is illegal. I'm saying we could write laws to make what they're doing illegal, because remember, every profit anybody makes, myself included, is the excess labor. If it's not me doing all the work myself, it's the excess labor of somebody else. That's a categorical fact. So the question is, should one person?
But is it slave labor?
No, sir.
Is it labor that's
You're right.
agreed upon beforehand?
Here's the problem.
To be done at a certain price?
David, we don't
So,
need
I mean,
to. David,
sir,
stop.
You have to be
stop.
honest.
I am honest, but you have to
what
stop,
you're doing
my
is you're trying to
friend.
portray anyone who's wealthy as evil.
No,
so that
I
you
am.
can justify
Sir,
using the government force to confiscate their property.
David,
That's
today's
what it
show.
is.
David,
There's
today's
nothing
show.
less, that's nothing else that you're doing.
David, today's show is supposed to be how can we talk along different ideologies, right? And here's the issue. I give you a chance to talk, and I like to get a chance to talk as well. But here's the deal. You have to talk with an open mind. You can convince me of things. In fact, nothing that you've said right now is wrong. And in fact, I've agreed with. There's nothing you said that was wrong. Nothing. However, interpreting whether it is what is supposed to be is a different issue. And what I'm saying is if in the totality our system created the condition that we have today, then there's something wrong with the system. That's all I'm saying. And that is a fact. In other words, there's something wrong with the system.
But in comparison.
No. I'm saying, and in comparison, we can find a lot of societies that are much more effective and are much richer on a per capita basis. We can find, I mean, the numbers are there, David. So what I'm saying is, I am not trying to say that you're wrong about whatever.
But those were not. Well, hold on. But those were not countries that were socialist in their principles for the entirety. A lot of it they've been recently turned to the left, but a lot of their foundation was based on capitalist principles.
I am not
referring to Europe.
Look, I am not.
Clear, the Europeans.
Look, I am not.
They benefited from mass colonization of places like Africa,
absolutely.
where they got mass resources.
David,
for
look,
for little to no cost.
David, here's the deal. You're right, and the same applies to the United States and slavery.
That's an apple and oranges comparison.
No, the same applies to the United States and slavery. I can look at you and say that there are a whole group of people and I'm coming to you 713 pretty soon. There are a whole group of people in this country, right, that never were able to amass capital specifically because of the social conditions in this country. And that's not only black folk. There are a lot of other folks.
But slavery ended in the 1800s. That's
yes,
really
but
200 years ago.
Yeah, but slavery.
That's a whole different issue. But to the key point, though, you're not addressing is every time it's been truly implemented. What you're suggesting, this idea of not the equality of opportunity, but the equality of outcome, which is basically what you're proposing.
No, I'm proposing the equality. No. Sir. I want the equality of access. Sir, here's the deal. I want the and then I'm gonna let you go after this, and then you can call into my show all the time. You see, I give you the time to talk, and I also allow you to say your piece. You know that.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Man.
Absolutely,
I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, sir. So let me tell you where I'm coming from. Look, I want to get this part across. I want equal access to success. That's what I want. Okay, and equal access to success.
And we have that.
We don't. And we can debate that another time because I want to give 713 a chance. But your contention is we have equal access to success. My contention is we don't. So the next time you and I talk, let's discuss that point. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you so kindly for calling, sir.
Thank you very much. You have a good day.
You too. Yep. All right, let's go ahead and go to 713. 713, come on in. You see how I told you guys this program belongs to you? You've changed the darn program. I had a whole lot more to say about other issues, and you've changed the program because it belongs to you. Before I get to you, 713, I want to make a plug for our show. So in that light, folks, I ask you, a program that belongs to you, give us a call or rather, go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and please become a member, become a contributor, become a subscriber, become a Patreon. 713, you're on. Talk to me. 713, you on?
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing? This is Chris Leger with Show 1002.
Yes, sir. Talk to me.
Okay, hey, I want to say I was listening to you and the previous caller.
Yes.
And here's the thing. I agree totally with both of you.
Right.
But here's the thing. The problem with capitalism is that, yes, it is fair, it is just, it is legal. But as history has shown, capitalism is going to collapse under its own weight.
Of course.
Because it's going to spread inequality.
Exactly.
It's legal. Not saying that it's not legal.
Right.
Every capitalist is not a crook.
Right.
Every capitalist, I believe most capitalists are hardworking, honest.
I believe that
but
too.
The problem is the way the system is set up, because it spreads inequality.
Right.
Even though it's legal, it's going to collapse on its own weight. And if you historically look at how do revolutions start, revolutions always are going to start because of economic inequality.
What is your name,
whether
sir?
Whether a country turns to communism or whether it turns... I'm Chris Leger with show number 1002.
Okay, Chris, I want to stop you
So-
for a second because I think David is still. Oh no, I think he just left. I think David just left the line. But I think that is what you just brought in is extremely important. You know, and I'd wanted to expand on a point that David was making, where he says all these things that were built up first with capitalism. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. Put it this way: if we need capitalism, and I'm gonna come to you guys on the Facebook page in a minute as well. If you use capitalism to build a few things, and then you build up things, and then you have to change the model because of reality, I think we should be able to do that. The problem is these people have made capitalism a religion. And when you make any economic system a religion, you're unable to look out for people. And my contention is, if we want to look out for society at large, what you have to do is you have to think about society first and business second. And they're not mutually exclusive. You know, they're not mutually exclusive at all. Go ahead, sir.
And you're right, and I'm going to let you get to your other calls. I'm going to let you get to the people on Facebook. But the thing about capitalism, like I say, the thing is, yes, it's fair and it's just, but it spreads too much inequality. It may take centuries for it to collapse, but it's eventually going to happen. And my last point I wanted to make also was about, I think a lot of problems what we have in politics has a lot to do with attention span.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because people don't really pay that much attention to what's going on. And it always seems as if, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but significant events that could change society never happen close to Election Day. I mean, things happen months before Election Day, and we forget about them, and just the Election Day just comes and goes, our problems stay the same. So I think a lot of it, what we have to do is we have to focus more on what's happening in our day-to-day lives and the people who we elect, how they affect our day-to-day lives.
Well, you know,
but that's my last point. I just want to say, great show.
Thank you so kindly.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so kindly. But let me just answer one thing and say that as far as conspiracy theories with economic systems and so forth, there is some conspiracy in it, however, and I ask you, whenever you get a chance, remember when Lewis Powell wrote the Powell Manifesto, what was occurring in the United States then? Labor unions were becoming strong. Americans were becoming more progressive. And they were asking the questions about capitalism. They were asking, why is it that if I am doing all the work, only the person that invests capital are the ones who benefit from the spoils? And these are important questions one has to ask. The question is, why is it because you are the one that provide the capital that somehow you are the one that gets all the spoils? And you have to realize that that is just because it's the law. The reality, however, is you...
Well, here's the thing,
Go ahead.
Well, I want to say this real quick. Capital, people got to understand, capital is just not money.
I understand.
We equate capital with money.
Right.
But capital also includes human labor, equipment, and resources.
Sir,
and we as workers,
that is what it
we
should
are
be.
part of capitalism.
That is should... I mean, look, I love that you said that, right? But the only thing that gets preferential treatment is money or objects of money. So you're right in that capital should be the labor, and if capital is the labor, then I should be able to monetize my labor based on the excess profits of the organization. Excess not what occurs. Only one set of thing is considered capital. So those are the important facets that we have to remember. So I mean, we need a complete revamp. I don't want to call it capitalism, but it would be it would really be a hybrid of things, right? The problem is nobody wants to even have a hybrid of things. They want these absolutisms, which I don't agree with. I don't care if somebody want to call me a socialist. I want to use the best of capitalism, and I want to use the best of socialism, and there are goods within both of them that I think should be explored.
Hey, my last question. I got this question for you I want to
Yes.
ask. This is the last question I got to ask.
Yes, sir.
Why is it that us, who are on the bottom rungs of society, are always the most adamant supporters of capitalism when it does not benefit us in the long run?
That's that's a very important question, and I'm so happy that you ask, and I give the answer I always give. And that is, please go to my website, egbertowillies.com, and just search Powell Memo or Powell Manifesto. It was very well designed. The document was designed in such a manner that ideologies got injected into schools, media, and elsewhere with fallacies. And the fallacies were preordained from institutions created to specifically design those policies. Example, the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institutes, and others. So what really happened here is America has a story to tell, and they tell that story. And that story is being told over and over again. And if you keep repeating something to somebody over and over again, eventually that becomes a truth. So what happens is a lot of
fake news.
Right, but it's even worse than fake news, because what happens is this become an institution, and good people believe it, and good people start to be the promoters of it. And what it says is everybody really, it's like David. David is a good person. David just says everybody has equal access to success. Well, if you came from a line of slaves, if you came from a line of indigenous folks who were put on reservation, if you came from all these lines, all the first and second base that these other people are at when they started, you are not. And they can say, oh, well, look at Jesse Jackson's kids. Yeah, those are the exceptions. I can always find an Oprah Winfrey, or I can always find somebody that's doing well within any particular sect or group. But when we look at the preponderance of what occurs, it is like we go to Appalachia, right? You go to Appalachia, you have all these poor white people that are buying into this mantra. They are supposed to be with, I have a phrase on this show says, whenever we unite the barrios, the ghettos, and Appalachia, we would have won the economic war in this country. When we get those three groups to our lives, it's really more than that, but when we get those three major groups to get together and realize that they're in the same boat, race is a social construct designed to divide so that a few can keep power. Once we get that into people's heads, then we can start making a difference. The Powell Manifesto is like a cancer. It's like a metastasizing cancer that goes through all these societies, and mostly, again, it's low information societies that make these people believe things are bad now, but I could be the one who make it better, or I could be the one who get out, and I don't want to kill that opportunity that someday I may have. When the reality is you're likely never going to have that opportunity. And that is what we have to preach. Let's not preach the fallacies. And you know what, David, I understand where David is coming from. David believes that everybody has equal access to success. If I told David my business story, how Willie's Computer Software Company came into being, the struggles that I went through, that the only reason that I made it was because I had a tough head. My head wasn't the one that somebody could say, well, you're not going to make it, I believe it, and then go back and work for corporate America. I said to hell with it, I was going to do it. Everybody, you cannot ask every person because of how they grew up, because a lot of other factors. You can't ask everybody to be like that. And what I am is empathetic to the person to the least of us. I am definitely empathetic to. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Hey, great show.
Thank you so kindly.
The other people.
Please go ahead and call in. Let me get to the website and see to the page and see what other people are saying. And thank you so kindly for calling, my friend. Okay, let's go ahead and see here what our folks are saying. And bear with me as I pull you guys up. That was great discussion. And folks, if you want to read a whole lot more about the show, what the show was supposed to be of today, go to the blog post that's in the page, and you can see where we were going with talking to people. But I tell you what, I think we show with examples of how I treat every single caller of mine and how I answer those who agree or not. I was going to talk about some of that as far as having the dialogue and having the discussion. It's great that David called. David has a diametrically opposing view than I do, but we didn't have to go into a shouting match, and we could find the truth in what each was saying. And I understand where David was coming from. I understand some of the ideology. It is my responsibility to try to, just as I understand him, to get him to understand me. Anyhow, let's see. Let me go ahead and start reading this these things on Facebook, on the Facebook Live page. And like I said, it's your show, and you can change the show like you did today. You can always change the show because it belongs to you. All right, come on, Paige. All right, let's see. We have Chase Escamilla. FBI raids office of Trump's longtime lawyer Michael. Yes, I just saw that run across on CNN. Real time, exactly 2 seconds. Chase, fix, and repost link. Okay, let's see. It's on all apps. Bear with me as I read more of your comments. Will never be repaired, in my opinion. I don't know what you're talking about, but that's okay. This is why I have stepped away from Democratic Party and helpful individual candidates regardless of party. Yes, that's what you need to do. Now, let me just say that generally speaking, within the Democratic structure is where progressivism occurs. That wasn't always the case. The Republican Party, in fact, if you remember, was one of the parties instrumental in also getting the civil rights passed. Okay, Mike Cisak, my conservative friend. Socialism failed in India when it was tried. India opened itself up to capitalism and lifted half the population out of abject poverty. The same thing with China. Okay, China, first of all, China is not a democracy. China is a communist country with a capitalist system. You're absolutely correct. As far as it being able to raise quite a few people out of poverty, how can I argue with you, Cisak? You're absolutely right that, half of those people, capitalism helped, made it a lot better. What happened to the other half? There's a system that allows the entire group to be helped. And that answer comes from right above you, Bruce Pollard. Bruce says, isn't the success a sort of hybrid? Yes, it is. The problem is, as I was mentioning to the last caller, is that everybody wants absolutism. Everybody wants to say the only thing is pure capitalism or pure socialism or communism. I mean, I want to tell you, socialism and communism in the dictionary is defined the same. I think that has something to do with the Powell Manifesto. They're not the same. All right, one is the government control all the resources. That's communism. Socialism is the hybrid. Socialism, we have a strong government, which I want a very strong government. We the people. People can say, well, government don't work. You know who government is, folks? Government is you. If you want government to work, you have to actively engage government. Government doesn't exist on its own. You are the government. So if government is not working, you're electing the wrong people. If government is not working, you are not keeping involved. Because if you stay involved, government will work. Because government represents you, and you decide who you are going to put there. And government isn't inherently good or bad. Government is you, and that is what we have to keep in our head. The Powell Manifesto always try to make that distinction about government and private enterprise, okay? Government, what they really mean is private enterprise and you. Government is you. And when you realize government is you, then we make better government. Okay, let me continue it, folks. Mr. Michael Rudin, business was designed to improve humanity, but such has been corrupted by unfettered capitalism. I agree. Social democracy, a.k.a. democratic socialism, are better systems. That is what Bernie has been pushing. That's what a whole lot of younger millennials now are pushing. Most of the folks that I hang with now are millennials or very young Gen Xers. And what you find is most of these folks are ready. They are now ready for real democratic socialism. And don't let that word socialism scare you, because that doesn't get rid of free enterprise. It means that what we have now is a system that works for everybody, and it's not a whole lot different than what we have now. Let me give before I continue reading, let me give you an example of what this will look like. And in fact, I'm writing a book about that now. I think there's a reason why I had to change the title, change what I'm writing about, and why this is going to be it. It looks like this. Right now we have Medicaid, Medicare, Medi-Cal, and all these other things, right? In a democratic socialist system, you would have Medicare for all. You'd have Social Security after a certain age. You'll have child care protection. You would have these. We would look at all the things we want as a baseline in society. I'm not talking about a bunch of freebies for everybody that they live like kings and queens. And no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about essentials to life for everybody. And then after you have that, you build your free enterprise model over that. And it is not impossible. What it means, though, is that you cannot be as greedy, right? Because you're going to pay more taxes. But the thing about it is this. You're paying, for the folks that are average earners, they're paying those in taxes already. When you talk about somebody who buys their insurance and spend $10,000 for the family's insurance for that year, that's a tax. Because you have to have the insurance to take care of yourself anyway. That's a tax. Now, suppose instead you had to give the government $7,500 more in taxes, but your health care is covered. Makes a lot of sense and no headaches. Not worrying about next year you got to find another insurance company that has a better price. None of that. So what we have is a problem with communication, and what we have to do is communicate much better. Okay, René Perpatua. We cannot forget the ethical side of society, equality and fraternity. Absolutely. Yep. Look at Scandinavia. Absolutely. Michael sees that come back. Scandinavian countries used to be very free market capitalist countries from the late 1800s and 1950s. They became very wealthy and successful. Now they are heavy welfare states. They are more poor and compare per capita in. Look, I don't want my dear friend CSAC. Don't ever talk to me about per capita. Per capita, America is a very rich country. But the median in America is very poor. So let's get those numbers right. If I make $100,000 and 10 people make $1,000, that per capita income is $10,000. But only one person makes several tens of thousands, and those other people make $1,000. Be careful with the numbers. In America, that's what they do with the numbers. They don't tell you how it's distributed. And if right now in this society, 10% of the people, I think, control something like 80%, if not more, of all capital assets in this country. So let's be real. Those are the realities. And the problem is everybody try to make it nebulous to make people scared. And politics done right is not going to do that. Politics done right is going to be a part of that change, that enlighten people, that remove the fear that people have for a change in system, and try to tell them, no, you don't fear a change in system. You make sure that you do what it takes to change the system. We are going to get rid of people's fear. Programs like mine, great bloggers out there, that's our job, and we're going to do it. As long as we can, we're going to do it. Perpetua, let's see. On federal, yeah, I read that already. Egberto, you aren't being honest. You are claiming such businesses are stealing, but won't say how. All right, I'll tell you how. There are two ways that they're stealing, and there are two ways. One is on capital gains, and the other one is on profits. When you go and work for a company, and that company, you work very hard, and that company makes a whole lot of money, right? The first thing that happens is all that money goes to shareholders, people that had no active role other than putting their capital in there. It is legal. I'm not saying it's not legal, but it could also be defined as stealing, taking something that you didn't work for or earned. It's called unearned income. Okay? Now, on capital gains, why aren't those who created the conditions to create the gains are not participant in the gains? Right? Also, why is it that gains, which normally go to folks who have passive values to the company, meaning they don't do much to make what created that value, also pay less taxes than something they had no skin in? That is because they were able to buy a politician that says there's something different about capital gains than regular income. And that is not the case. That is definitely not the case. And most of this go by because people don't know. And when they do know, that problem is taken care of. Okay, René Perpetua again. Just take a look at the tax scam bill. Favors 1% and gives another tax cut. And you know what just came out from the budget office today? The budget office says it's not going to be $1.3 trillion deficit. It's going to add $1.6 trillion to the deficit. And that is even wrong because when that amount of deficit comes out, based on how the capitalist system works, that's going to crowd out a whole lot of private money. And when that occurs, a lot of people don't need to invest in these things. They'll just invest in secure bonds. And when you invest in those secure bonds, guess what happens, you know? A few people constantly make money. I needed to answer CSAC on something else. And when the company doesn't make enough profit, what it does is it gets rid of workers. So that is the second thing. Okay, sorry about that. Anyhow, so those are the important things that we have to figure out. But folks, we are at the end of the show. I am sorry I didn't get to it. Like I've told you guys all of the times, you have the ability to call into this show and change the direction. If you're going to have an interesting conversation that other people will benefit from, I would dearly tell you, hey guys, if you want to know what the show is about today, go read the blog of the week. And as you see, somebody came in here and made a very good discussion about these different structures. Look, folks, before I go, I have to make my last pitch, and that is to tell you we are a progressive show. Our goal is to inform. Our goal is to educate. And when I say educate, I don't mean Egberto educating you. I mean co-education. We educate each other. When I have callers come in here, many a times I learn from what they're talking about. Not only do I learn from what they're talking about, I also expand on my discussion, on my argument, on my narrative, based on what they have to say. I know what I have to do to make the proper narrative. So that is why it is so important. I love to get your emails, and thank you those of you who may email me, some of you frequently, and keep doing that, please. Love my listeners. Now, it is important to keep this going, so I want to ask you again to please go to Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right. It's right there on the screen, but it's Patreon, patreon.com/politics done right. Be a subscriber to Politics Done Right. Keep us active. We do 5 shows a week. One is on the Pacifica Network on air in real time. This one here is on 3 other networks, Coffee Party Network, Blog Talk Radio, and Facebook Live, of course. Please remember, whether you're watching this on podcast or on Facebook Live or on Blog Talk Radio, please remember to share these programs. Believe it or not, I've gotten emails from people who've gotten it through the grapevine. In other words, they haven't gotten it on Facebook Live or whatever. Somebody have given it to them, and they come and say, oh, my God, thank you so kindly. You opened up something. Many times it's you who've opened up their eyes because of the discussion that you've allowed to occur. Again, please go ahead and go to patreon.com/politics done right. The link is also at the top of the post. And be a part of the solution. We are going to make that change. We can't say government is bad. We have to make government good. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for having listened. And you guys have a wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3.